Hello, disruptors, and welcome back to Mindset Mastery Moments, the podcast where we dive deep into stories, strategies, and shifts that empower lives, transform thinking. Of course, I'm your host, Dr. Alisa, the number one mindset disruptor. Today's episode is a powerful reminder of wisdom that history holds and how stories, especially those born from lived experiences, shape the legacy that we leave behind. Our guest today is a woman who understands the value of preserving truth, culture, and voice. Value of preserving truth, culture, and voice. You all know that Dr. Alisa gets really excited about that kind of stuff. She has been an educator, a passionate storyteller, and the author of a book that's called My Place Among Them. Her literary work that beautifully intertwines personal history and a broader societal truth. Today, I'm introducing you to none other than Gwen McPhail, also known as her pen name as J. Stanion.
I'm very excited to be with you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show.
Yes, we're excited to have you and talk a little bit more about this wonderful literary piece that's transformational. But before that, I want to tell our guests a little bit more about what you've done. Gwen McPhail is a national board certified teacher and, as I said before, the author of My Place Among Them, a compelling work that explores the intersections of resilience, politics, such a timely conversation, right? Culture and family legacy through a historical lens. Her writing is driven by a fierce integrity and the belief in education as a tool for change. Yes. With a passion for honoring the past and guiding future generations, Gwen brings a unique and necessary voice to today's conversation. And we're just more than happy to have you here, Gwen, as a longtime educator myself, who believes that education unlocks doors we didn't even know exist, and it ultimately takes us on a legacy building path. I welcome you once again. Let's dive in. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm definitely ready.
So, Gwen, My Place Among Them. What message or legacy did you hope to leave when you wrote this book?
Well, there are so many story parts to this book. I think the most important one is that there's so much importance to education, and that the earlier you start, the greater the influence it has. And yet it's also so very important that the people who are invested in an individual, they need to oversee their education. Because if you turn it over to others, you have no control over where that education takes them.
Wow.
So that is very key in this story.
So with that, when you say that the way you did, I'm going to ask you to define what you mean when you speak on education. Now, we know you are an educator, you're a board certified teacher, but doesn't mean your definition is necessarily that of all of ours. So we want to know, when you talk about education, what do you mean?
Well, in this context, I'm speaking of public education as an institute, because that was where it impacted the indigenous people of America. Children learn from the moment, I think they learn while they're still in the womb. They learn music and they learn language. So children learn constantly, but public education, it has become such an institution in our nation. And it's very important to me for people to think about, when they turn their children loose, making sure that they are mindful of what they're being exposed to, and that they're not just turning them over to babysitters. Sometimes, I hate to say it, but quite often I felt like, as a teacher, sometimes it was more important how many hours we had their children away from them, rather than what we taught them. What was the most important thing to some of our parents. And this story is a story about what happens. And this was not by choice for the indigenous people. It was it was a forced education. So, but still, we have to be aware of that at all times.
Yes, no matter what background, where we come from, right? I agree with that as an educator, and that's kind of why I got a little sourpuss in the mid 2000s about the educational system, only because it's not so much to speak about the institution itself, but how we all interact with the concept of educational institutions, starting with preschool and the willingness to drop off a 6-week-old child for 12-hour days with someone else who is possibly being moved around or has 6 other children to tend to, right? And that being the legal ratio. These kind of things do matter in the development of the type of humans that we're bringing forth. See, it's wider than my child. It becomes our child because they become people that we have in our communities, in our state office, in our politics, in our teachings. You know, it just goes deep and wide. So a lot of times we're like, well, I don't have any kids, so kudos to those women who have to take their kids to 12, you know. But no, these kids are all our kids, whether we want to take ownership in any form. Gwen, I believe in the village, and even if we don't believe in the village, it still exists. It's just the quality of the village that we're gonna have.
Yes, and there's parts of the village that sometimes you don't know about. Right. And so that's why it's so important that you are overseeing the part that you do know about.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yes.
And seek more info. So that's absolutely, there's a wonderful place to even kickstart. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into the historical events. How did you approach the research process, and how did you balance fact with emotional storytelling in My Place Among Them?
Well, I was blessed with a manuscript that was actually written by my great-grandfather to begin with. He wrote a story about a student that he had. He was a teacher as well. Yeah. He was an actual teacher on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation at the turn of the century. He was, in fact, there at the time of the Wounded Knee Massacre and encountered this young man. But he had actually been in the bureaucracy of the Indian education movement or program for some time. So he already had an experience with what was going on with the indigenous people, how they were being treated, what was happening. And he was afraid to publish his book. Mm-hmm. So he wrote a lot of letters back to the federal government. He was known a little bit as a rebel rouser, sort of a troublemaker, right, because he was actively involved in trying to bring change to the system. Mm-hmm. But as he recorded this book and wrote about the things that he was observing, he was afraid to publish it. And so when he passed away, it was passed to my grandmother, which was his daughter. And she was actually born there at Pine Ridge. So she, as a child, was in this setting of the Indian education movement. So she was also witness to part of this and lived her life in the early years. But she didn't take the time to write. It wasn't for her, so she left it in a box in her drawer, in her dresser, and always told my dad that it would be up to him to publish the story. So when she passed away and he received the manuscript, he began to work on it, did a lot of research, documented a lot of material. So thankfully, all that was already done for me. Right. So it was just a matter of going through all the family records and tying what I found in the way of research and documentation with the stories that I've been told, because I was told stories about my great-grandfather from the time I was very small. And so it was just when Dad passed away, he had been unable to finish putting the story together. So when he passed away, I said, yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. And several times I did pull it out and try to work on it. But as a full-time teacher, with raising a family, teaching full-time, you don't have time to sit down and dedicate yourself to writing. So after I retired, I stayed involved in my community. But then when COVID came along, all of a sudden I was in the house, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. Would love to have been able to fly, say perhaps to travel to Pine Ridge, travel to Denver, where my great-grandfather spent some time, actually go and visit these places, but I couldn't even do that. So I just immersed myself in the story and committed to writing it as a manuscript that would be publishable.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. That's just phenomenal. So you literally finished something that started 2 generations before you.
2 generations, yes, ma'am.
That's phenomenal. There are some powerful lessons throughout the book, especially on resilience. I noticed that. What are some of those takeaways you hope that readers would have walked away with when you penned and organized the manuscript?
I wanted them to believe in themselves and their own culture. John spent a great deal of time. He was a young child at the beginning of the story, had suffered great loss, was being guided by a very wise adopted father who saw the loss of his own culture, but did not want it forgotten.
Right.
But he was also wise enough to understand that there was not a future necessarily dependent on the old lifestyle. The culture and beliefs itself was powerful, but the lifestyle was fading, and Iron Horse knew that. So he counseled John to always hold his family and his beliefs close at heart, but to use that then as a foundation to build for a successful future in a world that was going to be very different from anything that his father had known.
Yep, so true. And I had the privilege of working on the Seminole Indian Reservation in the state of Florida for 6 years. And so I had the intergenerational interactions, which was remarkable for me because I do have, we call it Amerindian, where I'm from in Guyana, South America, heritage, about 40% total from both my mom and dad. So they were the grandmas who would be like 60, late 60s, and some even in their 80s that would be in the preschool program. They came to work every day and spent time in the classroom. Every classroom on the reservation, built from preschool all the way to the charter kinder to middle. They were in a classroom. There was a grandma. And so I interacted with them a lot. I worked with them because I had to learn their language. It was part of my job. And so it was funny. I was starting to learn the language, and some of them would come to me so I can remind them how to say something, some of the younger grandmas or tribal members. And that was the thing that I would have conversation a lot on when we were having our little conversations, was how much has things changed and how has it impacted? Because they're very traditional. And still a lot. That was one thing, I guess, with Seminoles, because they're an unconquered tribe, they were able to preserve a lot of their culture, but preserving it, the more the elders passed on, the less the preservation continued. And so while the younger people had some value for it, for the seniors, it was like, okay, so it's more than just showing up for, a ceremony or observing certain rituals when someone passes. It's more than corn dance. It is who you are and how you show up in society that speaks of our cultures and our tradition. And so that was the hardship and I mean, we're speaking of for me, I think right now it's about 12 years ago when I worked with them. So by now it's, who knows, and it's just part of the thing that is certainly a fight, because a lot of times we think new is better. And you have to make that shift, right? You have to make a shift to accommodate technology, whatever that is, but holding on to culture or tradition as part of an education or part of the education of an individual is so important, right? It's so important. And in the book, you talk about bureaucracy, politics, which was, those are some of the themes you had in the book. Two things people often shy away from a lot. A lot of people are afraid to talk, why was it important for you to highlight these systems as well?
Well, they carry on today. I think that's probably the part of it that is so important. And it is especially important to me. I wasn't even aware of it until I really focused on it in the book. And that is that you think about politics and you think, that, it's this huge bureaucracy that moves forward and impacts people. But a bureaucracy and the politics is made up of individuals. And it's the individual's decisions and choices and actions that then impact individuals' lives. And so we have to always remember that there are some good and there are some bad in all of those things. And so for me, the other part of it was John often went off away by himself. He spent time reflecting on his father, his adopted father's values and culture, and then use that to be resilient and to move forward, to give himself inner strength to go through what he was doing and try to be successful in the new world. So it's so important to remember that it's all individual. It's really and truly up to us to find our own strength, and it's up to politicians then, if they're good, they need to make sure that they fight strongly against those that are evil, that sometimes get ensconced in the politics and bureaucracy.
Exactly. And for once, I was a young child. I don't like politics. I'm not into politics. But I realized, as a person who's very passionate about uplifting individuals, and, a lot of people say, you're just a teacher, right? I always remind people with everything that I am, it is because I am a teacher. And if it's one title or job you want to affiliate with me, I say I'm a teacher and a facilitator. All the other things, all the other job titles are just whatever. At the core is that I'm a teacher, and I feel as a teacher, a facilitator. So humanity and the state of humanity, I feel, is literally in the palm of each of our hands. And what I tell people, when you see, a lot of us don't realize, but a lot of our silence and our docile or passive behavior as it relates to politics and bureaucracy is also part and parcel why we get some of the results. And then because we allow certain people to have more so things are not, because we don't want to rock the boat, we don't want to seem, it's not that. It starts with that educational piece, right? And it's from the formal structure and going into, structured education and also from education in the home, as you mentioned, in utero. So who and how we impact the lives of the children, that's the quality of adults we're going to have. And it's like, you cannot run from it. All the chaos from 60 years ago is why we have the kind of, political scene we have right now, because of who we raised, and all of us, how we, when we voted, when we didn't vote, how we vote, who we, all that matter, but all that comes from value systems.
Yes.
And that is taught through, a lot of value is taught through culture, through socialization, through mindset. You teach your children how to think by either helping them and giving them the room to develop that muscle, or just letting them figure it out from whatever's around them. They're going to do it.
They're going to form their own values. That's right. At some point in their lives, they will. And if you haven't made the effort to influence their values, then you have missed an opportunity to improve the world for tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So this is the world that we created. We don't like it. Let's do something. Let's do better now so that in a few years we can have a different outcome. But it's all of our responsibility. And you chose historical significant time. Of course, you explained that 2 generations ago, your great grandfather worked on this, the bottom baseline of the manuscript. What was your motivation behind the era, and how do you think it speaks to readers in this current era?
Well, the loss of the culture of the Indians, it wasn't a loss. It was taken away from them. The children were, if they weren't out and out, abducted from their families. In many cases, particularly for older children, their families were told, you won't get what you need from the government, from the federal government, if you don't give us your children. Because in truth, at the point that the Indian education system began, the government had come to understand that to take over the land that was here in America, they were going to continue to lose battle after battle after battle to the indigenous tribes that were here. They were fighting not just for their land, but for their lives, their lifestyle, their livelihood, everything. And that was very expensive for the federal government. Mm-hmm. And so what they realized was someone was smart enough to go in and say, if we can't beat them on the battlefield, let's educate them out of wanting to live like they live. Mm-hmm. Let's turn their children into people like ourselves so that we don't have to keep fighting them. They'll be content with wanting what we want.
Wow.
And so for me to see that and to understand that there were, as a teacher, I saw it so many times, there were parents who never questioned what we talked about with our children and our students in class, as long as we weren't calling them to come get them because they were in trouble, or if we weren't calling them to let them know about an award. A lot of parents were just content. And I think, in a way, I was thankful for COVID because it opened the world's eyes to what was going on, and it made parents begin to realize how important it was for them to be involved in their children's education. Not just involved dropping them off at school, but involved.
And bringing baked cookies.
What they were being taught, how they were being taught. Was this a critical thinking lesson? Were their children coming out being able to make judgment calls about things, or were they just being told, yeah, memorize this and you'll do well on the test? So for me, this particular era, because it was part of our family, because I knew the stories, I knew what had happened, and I was raised with a great reverence for the native cultures, and hated to see the loss and the tragedy that still is impacting so many of those people today, because they've not been given the opportunity to overcome that trauma that they suffered at those times.
That's deep. That's deep. A follow-up question to that rolled in my mind as you laid that out so articulately. And so I got to give you props. I know I can feel the passion that you have for what you're talking about, but you're just perfect. But the question I have is, in today's world, how can we systematically, or advocate wise in advocacy, help to motivate that healing process? For, again, you're specifically speaking about the native tribe or tribes, but there's so many of us from all different cultures and backgrounds that we were ripped in one way or the other. We think about the Holocaust, we think about slave trade, all that stuff. How can we help to bring healing as individuals or in a space of maybe systems?
Well, for me, the probably the most important word in order to help someone heal is, first of all, you have to have empathy for them. You have to understand where they are coming from. It's easy to sit in judgment if you have not experienced those things and say, oh, well, it'd be easy to get over that. You just make up your mind to get over it. And that's not at all how it works. And so I think that it's one of the things that our district did that was a very eye-opening experience. We had a lot of poverty in our school. And so we had a very wise principal. It was actually well into my career, unfortunately, who loaded up the teachers before school, in those early in-service days when you're supposed to be learning, getting your classroom all ready for the students to come.
Yes.
And he put us all on a bus and took us to see the homes that our children were coming from. And it was certainly a very eye-opening experience to see these homes of poverty and to know that in many cases, maybe there was a grandmother there. Maybe there wasn't even a grandmother there. Maybe it was an older sibling who was leaving, who had maybe dropped out of school even, and was working to make sure that the bills were paid so that these younger, I was a middle school teacher at the time, and so perhaps an older child had dropped out at 16 or 17 and was trying to make sure that they didn't lose their home, even though it wasn't a fancy house. Another example of that, my father was, he was actually the head of the Department of Education at a small college here in South Carolina. And he was teaching teachers. And so one day, one of them said to him, well, you don't know what it's like. You haven't been a teacher in middle school in how many years? And so Dad took that to heart and actually took a year's sabbatical and went back into the public school and spent a year as a public school teacher so that when they talked about discipline, he could actually say, yeah, that old-fashioned stuff won't work today. So you've got to be a little more creative. So empathy is key. And part of the way to make a change in the world is to teach our children empathy. I think instead of teaching them our set of values, perhaps, I guess for me, it's hard to say a set of values is right or wrong. It's not that. We want them to understand that just because someone is different does not mean that they're wrong or bad or don't need to be in the world. And it seems like right now we have too many children who are being brought into this fighting.
Yes.
They're being taught early on, take this side, and those people over there are not good. Those people over there are wrong. We don't need to talk to them. We don't need to listen to them. They're different from us, and so they're not good in this world.
Right.
And that's going to lead to it seems like we're headed down a road right now of instead of being a community that's raising each other's children and helping build a better community, instead we're building two sides of the same community.
We're not getting anywhere. Like, if they think what we're experiencing right now is horrible, it will only get worse. Because we're raising a lot of people who have no empathy, has real connection and socialization and interacting, just being human. It's not even like, when you interact with individuals of a certain age now, I'm not angry or anything or even judgmental. I'm actually sad a lot of times because I look at a soul that's even missing out on living.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like that, I remember when I was younger and you would meet with young children, they had such a spark and light and bewilderment in their eyes and in their soul. Now you meet 2-year-old, and it's almost like they know everything, but they don't know anything. they just know things about things like these.
I was going to say they're so good on
but they don't know anything about life.
No, they sure don't. And that is our generation's failure. I have to say that.
Most definitely. Most of the people that are my age, I would say it started somewhere with your generation that raised me. And then we thought, we have to make sure it's so much easier for our kids that we just turn them into little robots. They call them mini-me's, but they're not. They're not mini-me's. They don't know how to think. They don't. It's like they would ask you, well, go get your shoes. Where? I don't know where my shoes are. What do you mean? You just had them on 2 hours ago. Why don't you know where I put them? We can't find our shoes. These people are going to run the banks.
I don't know.
Run the hospitals.
It's scary. Yes,
I want to do that. What do you want to be when you grow up? You're talking to 12 and 11. I want to be an influencer. What's an influencer? Because everyone here is influencing.
Right.
The way I was raised to think is that everything I do will impact another person and the people and the places I go. So if, I wanted to experience something, I had to be it. I had to show up. I had to help build it. I had to help create it. I had to help solve it. That was ownership. And that's where I go with the term that leadership is ownership. And really and truly, leadership for me is first lead yourself, as John Maxwell says, and then you become, the rest of the world reflects who you are and what you have and what you are. So it's so deep, and this book just really brings all these themes and conversations to the surface that are so needed in today, for not just to help the native tribes or people who may have come from the Holocaust or African slave trade. Like, we all, in some regard, have this space where we need to heal along these lines. Because even as I was not born American, but I became a naturalized citizen several years ago, over 12 years ago. But my point is, like, even the fact of what it means to be American, as an American, does not have the same meaning, or we don't know. And this is not because of this president or that president. That's not what I'm talking. This is way before all the madness. This is just as you look at the Olympics even 8 to 10 years ago, and you were some of the things that were happening, watching all the disgraced athletes that were popping up, all the things that's happened, with disgraced singers and actresses. I used to love to watch the Oscars, the Academy Awards, and these things. I have no pride in that. And I did this when I wasn't even living here. I knew everything. I knew who should win. And now, for the last few years, I don't, because I have been on a path where helping people heal, get clarity about why they're on this earth, and then becoming, the best version of themselves, which facilitates, for me, socioeconomic development wherever they are in the world, is what my mission is. So I realized me spending all the time watching people who are just getting crazier and crazier and crazier.
Well, and I was just talking with someone the other day about the other thing that I've come to observe, I guess is the best word, because I really haven't figured out exactly where this thought is going at this point. But I saw a little bit about it with Iron Horse, and it is part of America's culture, and that is that we so often raise our children to be great. You're going to be great at this. You're going to be the best football player ever. You're going to be the best this, or the most wealthy that. And as they grow up, it's harder and harder to be the best. And the more people we have on this planet, the harder that's going to get. And so is that, in fact, part of why, number one, we're so competitive? We can't empathize with somebody if we're competing against them. We've got to fight them. We've got to beat them. We've got to be better than they are. And so we don't care about empathizing with them. And the other thing is that when it turns out in life, like it does with the vast majority of people, that you're not the best at something or you're not the wealthiest at something, is that part of our children's mental health issues right now as they come to terms with, well, it's no fun to just be a regular person if I'm just a good person. Why am I not the best person? How do I deal with not doing something quote unquote great? So I just, for me, those are all things that the schools they're dealing with. Mm-hmm. Parents are dealing with. Mm-hmm. And somehow we're not all working on the same path.
No, we're not. And I absolutely agree with you. And I think I made a social media tweet a couple months, maybe if that long ago, that I don't strive to be the best or the greatest. I strive to be exactly what I was created to be. And that's it.
Because the best you.
Yes, I was designed for me, God, and I was given a purpose. And so my job is to show up every day and do that with everything I have. Some days it will be at a 50%. Some days it'll be at a 60%. Some days it'll be 110%. But I am supposed to show up and be that. And being it is not doing it.
Right.
The difference between being and doing. So we have a doing. We have called into doing. I remember as a child, before I could really read time, just a sunset had me knowing where I was supposed to be. The sun, how the sun was. I knew it was time to get in and do homework. We had to stop playing I just kind of knew, and then you knew you were going to have dinner with your mom, your siblings, and your dad if he was home already, and you would have a bath, and then we would read stories, and we had cycles of power outages that we knew were coming because they broadcasted it over the radio. And so when it's light out time, we just went ahead and prepared little sleeping bags in the living room, and we would tell stories and make up stories, which was all vocabulary building, just being creative. That's, right. It's creative. So when it comes to writing and stuff, we have no issue expressing ourselves and articulating. Now, I did not know that, of course, but when I started studying child development at about age 19, 20, me and my mom, we were going to college together. And we were like, oh my God, that's like Gwen. And we did that. Oh my God. And I'm like, man, she really did a really awesome job raising us. She was a teacher the whole time before she became a professional teacher. But children don't have anything that looks, so I don't expect people to gather in the living room on a beanbag necessarily because there's no power outage. But that family time is not there. They're not even having dinner together.
Yeah, that's right.
It's awkward if you gather around, and they're
perhaps the most important part of American culture, the family dinner table, has been lost.
Yes,
because the parents are trying to be the best they can be,
give their kids the best things they can get,
the best things instead of the best kids they can be. And so I think that goes back then to John and his taking a moment to simply remind the students that were in the school where he was that's what they would have to do. They would have to grab hold of their beliefs, their own values themselves, and move out into the world. They could choose. They could go back to the native style, the indigenous, the reservation life. It was not going to be the same. It was not ever going to be I can't say that there would be no future because obviously the indigenous peoples today have become quite successful. Many of them have. There's still great poverty there. And is that perhaps because there were ones who did not become the best themselves? they kept striving for, they couldn't decide whether they were going to be indigenous or whether they were going to be white and follow the white definition of success. And so they're finding themselves in this awash in the middle without being either one completely.
Exactly.
And I think that's part of America's problem right now. Our children.
I absolutely agree, because honestly, even being quote unquote white in that scenario that you described, that was a subculture that was being created, honestly. And that's the issue. A lot of people take all white people and put them into the master role, when that's not how that is. It is just like, I hate to say it, but those people who would be trying to take power of the natives, those were like gangsters.
Mm-hmm. They were the worst of the politicians.
Right. And so it's, for me, I guess my thought process, and I think this happened very early, and it might be a revelation. Some of us are on this earth for all different types of reason. But for me, I realized you can't bundle everybody.
Yeah.
Those were gangsters. Because even when you look at some of these men had wives, they had kids who completely were against and anti, would sneak out, to people and help them find a way out of this stuff. And honestly, I always tell people, if it weren't for that coming together of good hearts and minds to help free people from these things, it wouldn't happen. Just so you know, if there was really enough people enough of the gangsters, I would call them, to strong arm this, it would have never ended, and we would have all been oppressed and suppressed. Because let's face it, even some of the wives and children, because of how they felt about how that structure of bullying and taking and killing and robbing and they were oppressed and suppressed in those homes. And only reason they can get a bullet in their head is because of the bloodline, right? And
right.
So it's that's the understanding, when I, like you said, don't just take things at surface level. It's easy to go people, those people, them. If you're standing in a place of empathy, would allow for you to come over this side. And you do that for every person you meet. It's not group think. No. I believe we're miseducated by just going with these sweeping generalizations. And again, that's how evil takes precedence over good. My belief is, and call me a fool for anyone who is listening, I believe there's way more good in this world than there is evil. It's just that good wants to stay quiet. Good fears evil. And so evil just is louder. That's what it is.
Louder. It's louder. I don't think it's stronger, and I don't think that we fear it so much as we get worn down by it. The noise. It is loud. That's definitely such a strong statement to me. It is that we do get worn down.
I love that. Yeah.
And because in order to be able to stay strong yourself, you also have to have some time in your own mind to refresh your values.
Yeah.
To sit back and reflect on, well, okay, I tried that and it didn't work, but I don't want to give up on the concept. I don't want to give up getting to know that person. So what else can I do? And without that, if you're constantly bombarded by this badness, you eventually, even if you don't join them, you give up.
You give up. You're tired.
As bad as, it's not the same as joining, but it's as bad as joining.
It is. You have the same result. And I think that's the thing about evil is louder, and it's very consistent.
It's very consistent, yes.
And that's what I tell people. I tell students all the time, I talk about success, and I'm like, okay, what's the difference between, myself or yourself and maybe an Oprah? Well, she, Dr. Whyte, you just don't know all the bad things she's done. And I'm like, let's just say she did, because I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe she did. I don't have proof. They're still looking for proof, whatever. But she was consistent.
Yes.
Even
well, and the other lesson that really came from this, I hope that people will take away from this book, is also that the old adage about history is written by the winners. So when you study history, if you're not careful to make sure that you pick more than one version of the story, you can't have empathy for anyone else in the scene but the winner, because that's the only story that you know. And it's so important that we not accept what we're told as the be-all, do-all, end-all truth in the way that it has to be.
Come on.
We have to always look for more sides to that story and find out everything that we can.
Yep. And also filter through. This is why I believe in establishing your core values and your own true beliefs that are yours. Because again, someone said this on social media, like I heard this maybe 36 hours ago. There's really no fact. And I'm like, what? Okay, what is he talking about now? And I pulled myself to, let me watch this. He's like, facts are not real. They're still only someone's view of something. I'm like, okay, you know what? He's got a point, but that is like a mind twister. What I realized is that people's like, well, facts are things you can prove. Well, based on whose perception? The person who's proving it and did a damn good job at proving it, right? Because here you, like you said, there's a story and there's all these different sides and all of it can be factual at the same time. What are you going to do? The guy who pulled the bullet says he was going to shoot me, so I shot him first. And the guy who got shot says, I don't even have a gun.
Yeah.
Well, you were going to put your hand in your waist. And he's like, I was trying to get my bubble gum. And whatever he says, they're both telling the truth and giving you factual statements, but it's two different sides of the story. All this time you said the guy who shot him is a bad, evil murderer. Yeah, he's a murderer, all right, but only because he thought he was going to be gone. And so that is why everything is left, like you said, get a 360 view as much as you can. Don't hold on to things. I tell people I collect data and I store it and I let the rest reveal over time. And then, I'll get that travel around it and I'm like, and I'll be like, well, what I have is this. What else is out there? You know?
Yeah. So, when our farm is on the National Register and I had to write that application, and it's my husband's family, not my own. So I had to do a lot of research, and so he had 6 siblings, and his mother as well, that I was able to talk to and trying to gather that information together. So what I did was I interviewed every single person, tell me your stories, tell me what you remember, share with me this. Why was that such an important event? I wrote all that stuff down. And it was amazing to me how you could find the intersections of the stories. That was where the history of the family came out. Right. And so as I was writing that application, I was able to say, yes, I'm pretty sure this is true. Or I'm pretty sure this was a really
among all parties.
Because every single one of them remembered it pretty close to the same and felt like it was a pivotal moment in the family farm life or success or, surviving a bad year.
Yeah.
And we don't do enough of that, particularly not, I'm afraid, in the public schools. We have these books and the books are written to be sold to the schools. And so the schools pick a book and they teach from that book. And that's what the children learn. And so, unless we take them to libraries and unless their parents tell them stories and unless they go back and listen for their grandparents' versions of events during those times, they may have a slanted version even of history. So, like you say, we need to focus on being our best selves and not judging others until we know all of the stories.
I love that. And that's definitely something, like I said, I didn't finish the book, but definitely gives us so much on definitely how you can sort of master a journey through getting all the different perspectives and really doing that inner self-reflection and owning your own part of the story and just empathizing and maybe just with empathy supporting another person to allow them the space to become their best selves as well. So mindset advice to go. Yeah, go ahead.
No, just rather to find the empathy with them rather than judge them. Exactly. Today, we want the headlines. The news wants the headlines, and so many times people pay attention to the bad instead of the good. Exactly. And so that's what we focus on instead of giving somebody time and understanding them.
And guess what? That's what will magnify. If that's what we focus on, that will grow. And we can choose. I mean, I'm still waiting for them to have a media blackout day. They blacked out so many things, but nobody says, "Oh, let's not watch the news or get on social media for a day." No one does that. There's still, and I'm like, so then don't complain. You don't want to miss out, right? FOMO, right? So exactly. We're feeding the golden calf that we want to rise, and so that's the results we get. Fortunately, unfortunately, we all have to deal with it, but it's what we are feeding. And that's what's growing. We feed negativity. If you look for that, that's what you're going to find. And that's probably, where I come off a little bit weird, or some people say eccentric, but I am fine with whatever you want to call me. That's your right, or what you feel like. But I'm like, well, I could see a really horrible situation. And my thought is, how can we capitalize off of this and turn it into something good, or what's good in it that we can draw from? What can I learn? Being in rooms with some politicians that many people don't like, I've had those opportunities, and I was like, first off, I'm like, I don't know that I want to be in the room with this particular person, because they just, oh yeah, Alisa, is my other sensible side goes. Because why? Because all the stuff they said in the media about them. You're so right. And I sat there and I go, well, what can I learn? Because at the end of this day, this person made it in this position. So they must have done a few things right for people to believe in them. That's what you need to learn how to do. And that is why, again, evil wins, because evil doesn't stop. Evil always bounce back and fight another evil route to keep rising to the top. While people like us, we talk ourselves out of it because we wouldn't learn. We're looking like, if it's not all lit and why, good, we can't find good. But the good is always right where the bad is, and the bad is always right where the good is. Right, so exactly. You have to take the good and the bad, and you have to extract. It's no different than when we're using wheat to make flour. They have to sift it and refine it and all kinds of things for it to come into that package that we pick up at Walmart that's now golden, flour. So if we understand that process, because evil walks up and be like, oh, I see a whole bunch of good people over here. Well, how can I turn them into little minions? Yeah. They know one little bit at a time. They never, and that's what people don't understand. Like, that is what for me, I make it sound really simple, but for me, it really is just that simple. So when you look at people who you don't like, give yourself a reason to figure out what keeps them going. How do they survive? Because that's the only way you can get it. Like they said, darkness can't drive out darkness. Only light can do that.
Light can do that.
So you have to shine, or ain't gonna be no light.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think there are some people who perhaps are evil. I do believe that evil exists in the world.
Oh my goodness.
But we also definitely have to teach our children to not judge until they have reached deep enough to know if if it's true evil, or is it maybe just a way of covering up something that's hurting, or that coldness may just be their way of not being hurt by another person again if they were hurt as young people themselves. So yeah, definitely taking time and hearing all the stories is so important, and then filtering it through your own value system. And you have to have a strong value system, and it doesn't come from spending lots of time on devices. It doesn't come from being told, well, you're better than those other people because we have more money or we have a bigger house. It comes from going in all kinds of places and seeing all the different kinds of people in the world and finding good things about all of those people too.
Absolutely. Trying to getting on their side and getting the lens. Oh my gosh, this is a brilliant conversation. You all are going to love the book. So Gwen, we always ask all our guests in Mindset, and Flip the Script, what is success to you now?
I think success is being happy with where I am at this point in life.
I love that.
So,
contentment
doesn't have anything to do with money, doesn't have anything to do with anything, except I've met a lot of important goals. And I have a lot of great friends and family and have seen things in the world. And so I wouldn't, sometimes you talk to somebody who says, oh, I wish I could go back to high school. No. Oh, I wish I could go back to college. No.
No.
I wouldn't trade anything for where I am here.
Wouldn't change it. Wouldn't change anything in my journey now. I love that. Yeah. I just told a group of students that we're going and starting college on Monday, and I said, it's going to be great. You're going to love it here. It's better than preschool. People look at me like, where did you come? I'm like, preschool is one of the best times. I didn't go to preschool. I was at home. I went to kinder. My mom was a stay-home mom, and I think that's something like you can flex with that, because not a lot of people even know what that you mean.
No.
Go to school.
But it's coming back. It's coming back. A lot of my former students have chosen, as they've gotten out of high school and college, they're learning they can live off of one income, and they're choosing to be stay-at-home moms, which I think is amazing.
A choice and a design you make. I remember when I was pregnant, or about to get pregnant because I was doing IVF, paid off everything except the house. Couldn't pay off the house. Paid off every debt. And I was going to stay home for the first 2 years of my children's life. I was not going to go out there. And if I was, because I made our life where my ex-husband's check, what he made at that time, not counting a raise or getting, promotion or any of that stuff, or getting a new job, just what he made, less than what he made would do, and have savings as well. Yeah. And that's raising. I was going to have twins, so that was going to be, it didn't make sense taking them to childcare just to begin with anyway. What am I even talking about? That would have been the reason I go to, and I don't think people realize that you're paying somewhere between $1,200 to $1,800 in childcare a month. It's just a little less than someone's paycheck in that family.
Right.
Please stay home for those first year at least.
Yeah.
So you want a child, but do you want a child or do you want a trophy?
Yeah. Yeah. I see more and more young people making that choice today.
I see that too, and I'm so excited to see both parents swapping, like a family I'm connected to. They're like in their mid 20s, and the husband and wife, they both work from home and have jobs that allow the flexibility. So they're raising their son together. So when, they're swapping off and I'm like, they planned this out. So proud of them. And like you said, more of them are coming back to it, and lead us to say this young man, I think he just hit 9 months. He's starting to walk already. He knows how to turn the page of a book. He's not talking, but he's doing whatever he does to the stories. And this boy is 9 months going on 2 years old. And I believe it's because he has that high level interaction. They do developmentally appropriate things with him. And of course, he's just trying to shoot past his developmental stages. And it's just a beautiful thing to watch. And so like you said, and that's the stuff I'm looking for. And I'm like, if they can do it, you can do it. And my job, when I'm teaching even my workforce classes, I teach young people how to budget. I'm not your financial guru that's going to tell you how to invest stocks and all that, but you're never going to be able to invest in stocks if you don't know how to run your own budget. You don't even know what you need to make. Well, how much money do you want to make when you graduate? I'd say about $21. How do you know? I'm right now, Dr. White, I'm making like $16 an hour. So I think 21 would be good. I said, you're doing a lot of thinking. I said, do you want to know? Because knowing is always, you can't hit a target you can't see, honey. And they're sitting here looking at me as I break it down. And this is a regular household budget. And they're like, how come no one didn't teach us how to do this? I'm like, I'm sorry, baby. This is why you were in debt by the time you're 22. And I want you to understand, it's not your fault. But now that you have this knowledge, it is. You have ownership for it. I'm like, I came in here to mess things up for you, so you can't say you don't know. I am the person that came to mess it up for you. But it doesn't have to be that I mess it up for you. It depends on how you want to take it. Do you want it to be that today I mess things up for you? Or do you want to take that from today I'm empowered to create and I have control of my money and my time? It's right. One, because I've had people get frustrated, get anxious, have to leave the class. And I'm like, we're just doing a budget. Because now they understand, because I'm looking at them. Oh, let's go with 21, okay? And we start doing budget. Oh, but they're living over there with their mother. I'm like, no. Mother gets sick, mother can't work. Where are you going to go? You're 22 years old. Mother gets sick, mother can't work. Who's paying the bills at this house? Papa's gone. Let's just start eliminating people for the heck of it so you could understand that this budget need to be based on, and that's the stuff we're not talking about in school. I honestly created a curriculum. It's called the Mindset Code that I just want to put in schools. And it has all this kind of way of thinking. Because in preschool, you can teach children how to budget.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're asking for $20 in preschool. Mom, can I get $20? What do you want $20 for? Go to store and buy ice cream.
Yeah.
If they can say that, then you have to teach them.
Yeah.
$20 is a lot of money. Let me tell you something. Mommy doesn't even work for $20. Let's count 20. Okay, good. And if we have to pay $20, $1,500 for where we live, and mommy, you can start having these conversations, and they're probably going to look at you like you're crazy. But over time, you start to, it's like, so mommy cannot give you 20, but I can give you 50 cents. But that can't buy ice cream. Well, how many 50 cents do you need so you can get $2.50 or $1 to buy ice cream at Burger King? Well, how many weeks do you need to put it? That's math. And now they're thinking about, I can't just emotionally feel like I want an ice cream and someone gives me $5 to buy it. I've got to work on it. I've got to save it up. That is a value system you're embedding in them. And this is what Gwen is talking about when she says the institution of education is a all hands on deck system. That's what it used to be. That's what we need to return to in order to really bring about the type of people who win together.
Yes, most definitely.
Whew, that's a mouthful. Yeah. Deep stuff, right? So when we're at Mindset Bites to Go, I step away from the microphone and I hush my mouth because I'm on my soapbox, you can tell, and the camera, and you talk to our viewers and listeners for about 90 seconds with a takeaway that you want them to take. I like to call it a heart message that you would love for them to remember. And then we'll come back and let them know how to connect with you and this masterpiece that you've created. Here we go.
Well, thank you. I think that it's really, really important that everyone takes time alone and filters through what is important to them and establishes a value system that they want to live their entire life with. Look at the people you admire. Look at the people who are successful. Look at the people that you look up to and want to live like, and find what it is about them that you want in your life, and then stay focused on that. Never give up. Work hard towards those things, even if you have to take baby steps at first until you get really, really good and you have those thoughts ingrained in you in every decision that you make. And that's how you can move forward and become successful, not necessarily monetarily, but maybe monetarily. Just always remember that there's lots of ways to measure success, and the ones that you sleep the best at night with are the ones that go along with your own values, the things that you think are important in the world.
Wow. The ones that you can go to bed at night with and sleep peacefully. That's so important. I love that reminder, because a lot of times we measure it and then we go back at night and I ask this question, who are you when you're sitting on the toilet bowl? It's a lot of times that's a quiet time throughout the day. And then that last moment when you lay your head back before you fall asleep, how you feel about yourself matters most. And that should tell you, that's a little bit of a measuring of how your life is in alignment with who you are and what you were created to be. Gwen, it's such a phenomenal guest. I appreciate you so much. Gwen, can you share with us how we can connect with you? What's your favorite way for us to get a copy of your book?
Well, I love for people to go to a local bookstore and ask them to order it. I really believe in supporting local businesses because that is the part of the foundation of America. But if you're in a rush and you want it tomorrow, Amazon is the quickest place to order it from, and it is available on Amazon. It's also available on Audible if you like to listen to books, so it's available on through Audible. I also have a webpage, www.jstanion.com. I blog when I have the time, which is a little bit hard, and sometimes I'll write about the farm, sometimes I write about teaching, sometimes I write about things that I see in society I just can't deal with. So you never know what's going to be up there, and I'm not good about doing it on a daily basis, but there's lots of interesting things to read there, and it'll definitely put you in touch with finding values.
Absolutely. And as usual, you all know, wherever you're listening or watching the podcast, it is in the links are in the description, in the chat. Gwen, thank you so much for joining us and sharing not just your story, but your soul. My Place Among Them is more than just a novel. It's a mindset shift, definitely, and a legacy keeper. And it's a call for us to remember our own stories and that they all matter as well. And for our listeners, you can find Gwen's episode more episodes like this on mindsetmasteryMoments.com. And I have the link again, like I said, down in the description. So until next time, keep mastering your mindset. Think, speak, do, become. I'm Dr. Alisa with Gwen saying, have a great one.